is the video to go over problem number 1 on page 25. So we are going to figure out when radian is 0 and pi 6 and pi 4 and so forth, we're going to figure out what the sine of x is, and then we're going to find the slope as well. First and foremost, let's look at the graph of sine. So the graph of sine looks like a wave. So graph sine of x. Okay, it looks like a wave. So what would be the slope of this graph? So that's what we're going to figure out today. Oh, not that one. So let's think about two triangles. One is the half of square, which is 45, 45, 90 degrees triangle, because it's the half of square. And the other one is the half of equilateral triangle. Well, it looks like the same exact triangle, but this one is 45, 45. This is 30, 60, 90 degrees. The half of, and this is half of square. Okay? So what is the rise and run? What's the length of the triangle of this? So we know that this is, the radius is 1 because we are talking about the unit circle. And by using Pythagorean theorem, the rise of one leg is square root of 2 over 2, and the other one will be also square root of 2 over 2 because it's these sides are equal. For 30, 60, 90 degrees, or half of equilateral triangle, we have 60 degrees here and 30 degrees, and the radius, which is hypotenuse, is 1. So the short leg is half, and long leg is square root of 3 over 2. Okay? Keep that in your mind. Now, we have a unit circle. Okay? And we know that starting point is 1, 0. At 60 degrees, if you travel 60 degrees to the counterclockwise, you'll be at 0, 1. And if you go 90 degrees more, you get -1, 0. And then 90 degrees more, you get 0, -1. So what's the radian? Radian is 0, of course, at starting point, because that's the length or distance to go around. And if you go all the way around, you are traveling 2 pi or 6.4 miles, 6.28 miles. If you go to half of them, it's 1 pi. And if you go to half of one, that's pi halves. And if you go to half of one, which is right here, is pi fourths, because half of pi, it's going to be half of pi halves. So that's pi over 4. When you get there, we can draw one of the triangles we know, which is half of square, which is 45, 45, 90 degrees. And we know that, we just went through that, radius is 1, and the rise is square root of 2 over 2, and run is square root of 2 over 2 as well. So, rise, in other words, we say sine of x and unit circle, and the run is cosine of x in the unit circle. In order to get the slope, we just take the ratio and that's going to be our slope, which we say in precalc tangents of x. That x is the radian. Radian is, which is like this one, or pi halves, or pi third, and so on and so forth. So when we at pi fourth, sine is right here. When x is pi halves, which is right there. I mean, let's do pi fourth. When x is pi fourth, which is this one, then sine, which is the rise, when it's the rise, is square root of 2 over 1. So square root of 2 over 1. I mean, not 1, sorry, 2. And the slope will be, it's rise over run, so sine of x divided by cosine, and the rise is square root of 2 over 2. Run is also square root of 2 over 2. It's just that square root of 2 over, or divided by the same number is 1. So slope is just 1. Okay? How about the other one? How about if radian is pi 6? So let's say right there is pi 6. Meaning that the distance traveled from 1, 0 to that point is pi 6. Or what's the distance? That's 3.1415 dot 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 divided by 6, so it's going to be 0.5 something, right? So now, what triangle do you see at pi 6 or pi over 6? It is the half of equilateral triangle sitting the long sides on x-axis right there. And we know that the triangle is the radius or the hypotenuse is 1, and the short leg is half, long leg is square root of 3 over 2. So in other words, rise is 1/2, run is square root of 3 over 2. In other words, sine of pi 6 is, which is the rise, is half. So sine of pi 6 is half. Now what's the slope? Rise is, or sine of x is 1/2. Sine of pi 6 is 1/2. Cosine of pi 6, which is the run, is square root of 3 over 2. And if you do half divided by square root of 3 over 2, which is the same as multiplying half by reciprocal of square root of 3 over 2. That gives me, that cancels out. That is 1 square root of 3. So that's the slope. Likewise, if you do keep doing the same thing, how about pi third? Pi third will be somewhere over here. What triangle do you see at that point? Right here. I mean pi third. What triangle do you see? That is another half of equilateral triangle, but the shorter leg sits on the x-axis. So the angle it makes right there is 6 degrees. Now, so we kind of flipping this triangle into kind of make it stand up like that. So the rise is square root of 3 over 2, and the short leg is 1/2. So we're going to put square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2. And doing the same thing. Square root of 3 over 2 divided by half is the same as multiplying square root of 3 over 2 times reciprocal of half, so, and it cancels out, so that's square root of 3. So by third, we have sine of x is square root of 3 over 2, and slope is square root of 3. How about 0? When you travel 0 distance, then the rise is 0, but the run is 1. So rise is 0, and run is 1. So 0 over 1 is 0. So slope is 0. And the sine of x is 0. How about pi over 2, which is 90 degrees? If you travel there, what's the run? It's 1. Rise is 1, and the run is 0. So it's 1 over 0, so it's undefined. Sine is 1, slope is undefined. All right, let's go to the second quadrant. If you travel pi over 4 more, so here's the pi over 4, that's 45 degrees, and if you go to another 45 degrees, that's going to be 2 of the pi fourth, and 3 of the pi fourth, that's going to be 3 of the pi fourth. Okay? What triangle do you see? That's half of square. Kind of flipping. So we have half of the square triangle right there, and it's flipped. So the rise is still square root of 2 over 2. Run is actually negative because you're going to negative or to the left on the number line. So it's negative square root of 2 over 2. So the rise is still the same as this guy, pi square root of 2 over 3. That's 2. And then divided by the same number but the negative, so the slope should be negative 1. You see, if you compare this guy to this guy, it looks pretty much the same, but so that can probably apply for these two guys. So pi 6 and 2 pi, this guy to this guy, right? So let's look at 5 pi over 6. 5 pi over 6 is how many degrees? First of all, 5 pi is 180 degrees, right? Over 6, right? That's going to be 900 divided by 6. That's going to be 150. So we go 150 degrees. We travel. If we travel 150 degrees, in radian, we say 5 pi over 6, right there. And the triangle we see is the equilateral triangle. Longer side sits on the x-axis. So we have this triangle, which radius is 1, shorter leg is half, and longer leg is square root of 3 over 2. So rise is half. In other words, sine of 5 pi over 6 is half, and run or cosine of 5 pi over 6 is square root of 3 over 2. And if you do the calculation, 1/2 divided by square root of 3 over 2, which is the same as half, times reciprocal, cancel out, making 1, and 1 square root of 3. So rise is a half, slope is 1 square root over 3. Rise is half. Oh, wait a minute. I made a mistake right there. Right? That should be negative because we are going negative right there. So it should be negative. Right? So the answer should be negative 1 square root of 3. Negative 1 over square root of 3. You see the difference? It's almost like here's the mirror, and these two are the same except the sign. These two are the same except the sign of this one. So if you're following the pattern, these two should be the same, but this number is the same, and this should be negative square root of 3. Let's see if that's true. So 2 pi over 3, and we know that the pi is 180, so 2 pi over 3, that's 360 divided by 3, that's 120 degrees. So if you travel 120 degrees, that's at the, what? 2 pi over 3. And triangle we see is half of equilateral triangle sit up straight, right? So it goes like this. And the window radius is 1, shoulder leg is half, and rise or sine of 2 pi over 3 is square root of 3 over 2. So that's the sine of x, or sine of 2 pi over 3. So sine of 2 pi over 3 is square root of 3 over 2, which is the same as this one. Oh, actually, I made the same mistake. That should be negative half because we're going negative. Now if we do square root of 3 over 2 divided by negative half, it should be, what, square root of 3 over 2 times negative half, which is the same as square root of 3 over 2, I'm sorry, that's divided by, times negative 2 over 1, cancel out, that's negative, so it's negative square root of 3. So, negative square root of 3. Now, this is pretty much everything we need for the third quadrant and the fourth quadrants. I think you got a great idea to do it. So try it.